Well, hello there and welcome to the JAGGY THISTLE Podcast. Kenny Farquharson here in Edinburgh. We talk here on the JAGGY THISTLE about Scottish politics, Scottish culture, all things Caledonian, and occasionally look at the world, the wider world, through Scottish eyes. If you're new to the JAGGY THISTLE, can I invite you to check out the link in our show notes and have a look at the website there. We've got a few interesting things which I hope you'll enjoy. The latest was a review I did of an exhibition, big exhibition. Well, not that big an exhibition anyway, at the at GOMA, the Glasgow Gallery of Modern Art. That's the gallery where the statue is outside with the guy with the cone on his head. So it's it's better known for the statue than it is for the actual gallery. But the gallery is very good, and there's an exhibition there called Still Glasgow, which looks at the wonderful history and collection of Glasgow street photography, humanist photography, documentary photography going back 100 years. It's very good. I have some reservations about the exhibition, which I explain in my post, but generally it's very good. All those Oscar Marzarolis and Bert Hardys and Joseph Mackenzie pictures, and Eric Gill, who was a revelation to me, an amateur photographer whose work has been donated to Glasgow museums. So lots of good stuff there. Lots of very warming, very kind of heartwarming exhibition. I came away from it loving. I said in the piece that I came away loving photography more, loving Glasgow more, and damn it, just loving people more. It's just it's one of those. It gives you a warm Christmassy glow. So I recommend it for that. But anyway, that's the JAGGY THISTLE on Substack that on the website there. I hope you can check it out sometime. But today, a different subject, a slightly darker subject, but something we need to talk about. And we'll be talking about this a few times, I think, in the run-up to the Holyrood elections. But I think we need to put down a marker, okay? Because I want to talk about Nigel Farage and Reform UK. And particularly, I want to talk about comments that Farage made last week about Glasgow children, okay? Now, Farage said that the statistics pointed to the fact that 1 in 3 Glasgow children came from a home where English was not the first language. And Farage called this the cultural smashing of Glasgow. Very provocative thing to say. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I think the response to these comments, has been really interesting and quite revealing. I mean, a number of people, prominent people of Scots Asian background, went on Twitter and various other platforms to say, well, I was one of those kids, and look at me now. And they included Dr. Zubir Ahmed, who is the Labour MP for Glasgow Southwest. And this is a guy who grew up in Glasgow in a Scots Asian family where English was not their first language. And he went on to become an NHS transplant surgeon, an MP, and he's now a minister in Keir Starmer's government. So can anyone argue that this man has not contributed to Scottish and British culture in the fullest way possible? Just a young guy as well. And there was other people like that. There was a young woman who had been a special advisor to Nicola Sturgeon, very capable young political activist, political special advisor in Nicola Sturgeon's administration about three or 4 years ago. And she said, "Look, I was one of these kids." And and I actually have, I'm paraphrasing, but I've had quite a functional life, contributing to Scottish culture and Scottish life, Scottish public life. Am I someone who has culturally smashed Glasgow? And the answer clearly is no. And personally, me personally, I feel this on a personal level too, because I'm not a Scots Asian. Okay, I'm a middle-aged white guy. Okay, um, uh, you know, a middle-aged Scottish white guy. You know, and but when you look at my antecedents, you wonder what Nigel Farage would have made of my ancestors when they first came to Scotland. Because I'm from, on my mother's side, I'm from Irish immigrants to Scotland who came from County Cavan in the mid 19th century to live in Dundee, to work in the jute mills and in the foundries and the shipyards. And you know, they came to escape. They were refugees. Okay, a word which has been demonised in recent years. But they came to escape a famine that claimed 1 million lives in Ireland in the 19th century. Okay, and they came, and the ones who came to Scotland, my ancestors, I've done a little bit of a family history research. My uncle was a very great historian, a guy called William Walker, who was one of the great chroniclers of Dundee history, wrote a great book called Jutopolis. And he did sort of search the family history, and when our family came over from Ireland, they settled in a place called the Hilltown, which people who are in Dundee or visited Dundee may be familiar with. And that was known as, you know, it had a concentration of the Irish immigrants there, and the Hilltown Irish became known, and they were demonised in their time by the Faragists of their day. I'm just going to read you a little bit from a column I wrote in the Times about this last week, and I'll put the link to the full column in the show notes if you want to read it. But, you know, back then in the mid 19th century, a guy called James Miles wrote a book called Rambles in Forfarshire, and he had this to say about the Hilltown Irish. He had this to say about my ancestors, my family, basically. He said, "Their vile slang and immoral habits have seriously injured the general character of the poor population of Dundee, and I think throughout Scotland. The Low Irish are not a very improvable race. They cling to their rags, their race, and their filth with all the besottedness of perfect ignorance and stupidity." Now, Farage is the James Miles of today. Okay, the same demonisation, the same othering, the same lack of cultural confidence, and yes, the same racism. And let's not shy away from that word when it's justified in context. Doesn't mean to say that all Reform UK supporters are racist. It doesn't mean to say that everything that falls from Farage's mouth is racist, but this is racist. Because did the Irish smash Scotland? Did the Italians smash Scotland? Did the Poles? Did these waves of immigration smash Scotland? Did the Pakistani and Indian subcontinent wave, did they smash Scotland? You know? Or did they become, you know, the fully functioning and cherished members of the society that we live in today, becoming soap opera, sitcom stars, become first ministers, to become, you know, entrepreneurs and politicians, and be part of the warp and weft of Scottish society. They did not smash Glasgow. They did not smash Scotland. Scotland is the richer for their presence in our midst, just as Scotland is richer for the presence of the Irish immigrants from 150 years ago. So I see you, Nigel Farage, and I see you for what you are, and it isn't a pretty sight. So it's hard to escape the conclusion that Farage's problem isn't with immigration, it's with brown people, and there's names for that. And I think we have to treat this this has been Farage's comments are, to my mind, appalling, but they are useful. This is a useful moment. This is a clarifying moment, okay? When we see Farage and Reform UK for who he is and for what they are. And they're not, and this is useful because there's been some, I think there's quite a bit of complacency in some quarters of the Scottish political bubble, and in some, I have to say, some Scottish political podcasts, not mentioning any names, Holyrood sources, but some people I think are very complacent about reform and its true nature and its true function in the coming election next May, the Holyrood elections next May. So these people, I kept hearing a little while back that these are just rebadged Tories. Okay, this is just the new name for the centre right. It's not a kind of step change. It's not a new paradigm in politics. These are just your usual centre right politicians. I think we are beginning now to see that is not the case. This is a new phenomenon, and it's a very recognisable phenomenon because it's indistinguishable from the politics that we see all too clearly across the Atlantic. This is indistinguishable from the Trump agenda, and this is look at what's happening in America, and look for the echoes that we can readily find here on this side of the pond. I mean, last week, the US State Department published a 33-page national security strategy, which talked about the civilizational erasure of Europe. What planet are these people on? Their monomania and their delusions are so intense. They seem blind to what the reality that the rest of us here in Europe actually live with and live in. And the Trumpists have a clear preference, very clear preference, for a Caucasian culture, a Christian culture, a tradwife monoculture. Okay, and that is what is on the ticket when Reform UK stand in British elections and next May in Scottish elections. And the allies of Farage and Trump, these people, I'm talking about people like Viktor Orban, I'm talking about J.D. Vance, I'm talking about Le Pen in France, I'm talking about Elon Musk and his fascination with the far right. I'm talking about the far right AfD in Germany that Musk has been sucking up to. These are these are people in the same category. These are the brothers and sisters of Nigel Farage and his politics. And these goons, Orban, Trump, Vance, Musk, the AfD, these goons are on the ticket in the Holyrood elections in May because their allies are on the ticket in the Holyrood elections in May. And their allies are Reform UK and Nigel Farage. And we should be aware of this. This isn't politics as usual. This is a challenge to politics as usual. Nobody wants politics as usual. I shouldn't have used that phrase. This is a challenge to liberal democracy. Okay? And liberal democracy has many flaws. But liberal democracy has the benefit and the virtue of being capable of remaking itself over time. Sometimes it lags, sometimes it doesn't often get ahead of itself, but often it lags. And we need to kind of constantly refresh it and constantly be vigilant to make sure it is equal to the challenges of our time and the challenges of today. And a lot of work needs to be done on that. But that does not say we reject liberal democracy for the insurgent populist nationalism, Christian nationalism of the far right, which is a global force and a local force, and we would be foolish to if we didn't recognise that. So, as I say, I think it's useful. I think it's a useful moment, a clarifying moment, and I think we have to respond to it with understanding when we look at some of the people who are being sucked into it, and we have to kind of be gentle with these people and understand where their anger comes from, and be willing to address the sources of that anger. But we have to be aggressive when dealing with the Farage machine and the Reform UK phenomenon. We and the pussyfooting around this that I see in Scottish politics at the moment does not reflect well on us. And I think, this is a moral moment, a morally clarifying moment, and there's a moral peril in not recognizing it for what it is, and I think we should beware that we don't look back on this moment, this time, this election. We don't look back on it with regret because we failed to be equal to the challenge that liberal democracy faces just now. I realise these are stark terms, and I realise I can kind of feel my own anger about this. But there's some times in politics when anger is justified. And I think our political anger needs to be channeled in a calm way, in an organised way, in a level-headed way. We have to conduct ourselves. We have to be careful how we conduct ourselves. But the focus and the fire of our instincts at this moment should be beyond question. So there we are, and also the people involved in this. We can't let them off the hook. And there are people hitching themselves to Reform UK. It's just pure political opportunism. They whether or not they believe what's going on, and in particular this guy Malcolm Lord Offord, guy from Greenock who made good, had a very successful career in business, a merchant banker, went on to become a Tory minister, member of the House of Lords, gave £147,000 to the Tory party, a multi-millionaire. Has now hitched his wagon to Reform, and the naked opportunism, is pitifully apparent. This is, and he is Malcolm Offord, no stranger to shame. You just look at what he's doing, and if he has any moral qualms or moral queasiness about what he's doing, it has been kind of smothered by his obvious, heedless ambition to get back in the game and come to the centre of the game in politics. The extent to which he believes this shit that's been spouted by Reform remains to be seen. But if he doesn't, we need to remind him about it every single day. And I would recommend you seek out comments made by Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, on BBC Question Time last week, when Malcolm Offord and Sarwar were both on the programme. And it was Sarwar at his best, I think. A man who has been singled out by Reform, by racist tropes thrown at him, and it was justified. Sarwar has lived his entire life facing racism. His father, Mohammed Sarwar, was the first Muslim MP in the House of Commons, and then went on to become the governor of the Punjab in Pakistan. The Punjab, it could be quite. I'm not entirely sure that's the name. Is it the Punjab in Pakistan? The governor of a vast area of Pakistan. Sarwar grew up with death threats coming at the house on a regular basis. So he knows the kind of person that he's facing in Reform UK, and I think that's something that's worth checking out. So thank you for listening to this today. One from the heart. I felt I had to get it off my chest, and I do believe we need to order ourselves for the coming election in the full and frank knowledge of what we face and who we face and what it means both to us in Scotland, us in the UK, and globally, because this is a global fight. So thank you for listening. Please press the subscribe button if you want more of this in the future. I'm very grateful for your time. Speak to you again soon.